is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, welcome everybody to episode number 182 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, April the 29th, 2023, and my name is Jeremy Lee. I would like to thank everybody who joined for our 3-year anniversary episode 2 weeks ago, everyone who joined last night for the Expo recap. Tons of fun on those episodes. Also want to let you know, tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, myself and Josh Madigan of the Hockey Cards Gong Show will be covering the PWCC Hockey Weekly Auction as we have been for the past 11 or 12 weeks. And also next Saturday, no episode, I will be at the Edmonton Expo. Hopefully we'll capture a little bit of content from there to share with everybody when I get back. I'd like to ask you all to join over 300,000 people who have already downloaded the Center Stage app across both iOS and Android for quick comps and card management features. Their app is the fastest and most accurate at card shows or at home to help you price your cards. Build, organize, and share your collection with your friends and find other collectors to follow using their new social sharing features. They have some exciting new partnerships coming soon. Please stay tuned and join me in supporting the great team they have there and the innovation they are undertaking. And also, our other sponsor, use protection, practice safe swaps. Veriswap is an app and middleman service that lets you securely trade cards through the mail. Each transaction up to $1 million in value is fully insured by their guarantee. In order to use Veriswap, simply upload your inventory, make trade, partial trade, or full cash offers, and negotiate with the thousands of traders already on their platform. Check them out on iOS and Android. And as part of a special offer, your first trade on Veriswap is only $1. There's a referral link in the video description for your convenience. Thank you to both Center Stage app and Veriswap for their support of Sports Cards Live. Also, be sure to check out hobbynewsdaily.com for a daily dose of hobby news and entertaining content. It is a collaboration of various content creators, original writers, and just launched on April 1st of this year. Also, shout out Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect and Vintage Breaks. He'll be joining us shortly for the Vintage Spotlight segment. And thanks again, as always, to all of you loyal viewers and listeners. If you are not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, not yet following on Spotify, please take a moment and do so. Let's get to tonight's show. Tonight's guest, he started in the hobby when he was 7 years old, when him and his brother were collecting X-Men and Marvel cards because Baltimore, as he says, didn't have any good teams or even an NFL team yet at that time. He was a collector who needed to complete every set he started. In 2019, he went into a break, had the Mavericks, hit a Luka, and was ecstatic. In November 2020, he started Show Your Slabs. His favorite team is the Baltimore Ravens. His favorite athletes are Ray Lewis and Cal Ripken Jr. He is originally from and currently hailing from Baltimore, Maryland. Let's bring him out. Corey Fick, welcome to Sports Cards Live. How you doing, bud?
What's up, Jeremy? Thanks for having me. I want to amend the Cal Ripken and put Lamar in place now that he's signed back with the Ravens.
Got it. All right.
Or just add Lamar.
Let's add him.
I just wasn't sure, so yeah.
You can't take Cal Ripken out of there.
No, we can keep Cal in. But Ray Schulte did tell me some stories about Cal that were interesting, so we'll keep that for another day.
I also want to say to everybody, I realize that there's two big hockey games going on like right now. The Leafs and Tampa are like, they just started overtime. I was watching the third period, Corey. I'm like, oh, at least we'll see it end and then we'll go live and I'll just have to track the
I was watching it too.
Yeah, but it's in overtime. So that's going on right now. The Oilers and the Kings are starting in about 10 minutes. So to the chat, please keep us informed of the score as it happens. I do have my phone here. I'm going to be watching the Sportsnet app. And Toronto won in overtime.
Yes. Okay.
Toronto won in overtime. I see it right there. Okay.
That's great.
Let's go. As they say, the goal scored by Jonathan Tavares, who is the captain. Very nice and fitting. Okay. They knocked out Tampa. And to Amanda, if you're watching, sorry for you. I know you're a big Tampa fan. Same goes for all of our Tampa fan friends out there. heart goes out, but I'm glad that the Leafs took the series. All right, but we still need you to keep us up to date on the Oiler game as goals come in. Corey, you got something?
Yeah, not as important. I just want to say congrats to Toronto. I'm a Toronto fan strictly because of the card show and how great it is and how nice the people are up there. So no offense to Tampa. They have a couple good shows, but I was, when we were in Toronto at the Expo, I mean, you could hear, like, we weren't even in like downtown, and just the whole city, like the vibe was just, it almost hinged. I was talking to Steve Menzie, and he's like, my God, if they would have gotten smoked last night, like, it just brings the whole vibe down. You know, everything everyone's doing is just completely altered by, you know, the sports team.
100%. The Leafs in Toronto are like a religion, but where everyone in the city practices the same religion, which we know is not the case when it comes to actual religion.
Yeah.
All right. So we got lots to talk about, but let's say hello. We got a lot of people joined us already. Sylvain in the house. Lash Wine, good to see you. Jake Dahl. Perk is here. Vintage card collector. Super 25. What's going on? Vintage says, ask me, are you still doing Collectible Live? I am not. My deal with Collectible ended at the end of March, and I am no longer doing Collectible.
But he still has a deal with PWCC, so nobody asked.
Yeah,
that's how we shove it in.
That's how we shove it in. Yeah. I am still working with PWCC. They apparently let go at least 30 people yesterday, is my understanding. Yesterday or the day before now. Was that yesterday? God, time. That was
no, I think it was yesterday? Like 2 days ago.
2 days ago. 2 days ago. But as far as I know, I haven't heard anything. They haven't reached out to me to let me know anything about that. So I'm going to do my weekly hockey card weekly auction tomorrow with Josh Madigan. And I'm going to reach out to PWCC and have a conversation and kind of find out what's going on over there for myself. And probably mutually that, you know, their group and myself will decide if we're going to continue to, if I'm going to continue to cover their auctions, which I really enjoy doing. I've been doing it for 2 years now. It's a ton of fun. So, but we'll see. We'll have to see what's going on.
So you mean you're gonna look up before you yell the sky is falling?
I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna find out myself.
You're gonna find out before you just start. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna have some conversations. I mean, listen, I've got friends among the 30 to however many that got let go. So you know, that doesn't make me smile, but you know, decisions are made for reasons that they're made. And before I make any decision, I'm going to do my own due diligence on the situation and talk to the people over there. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. 90s hockey collector, good evening to you. Super 25 says, been using the Center Stage app. It's great, shockingly accurate and consistent. Great to hear, Super 25. What is up, Michael Stone, Jeff McMahon? Michael Stone, is there a catch with using Center Stage with Android? Can't find the app. It should be there. Center Stage app. Center Stage are 2 words. What is going on? What is going on, Mike from Eastridge? Good to see you. Bobby Burrell in the house. Here we go. Leafs just won. Leafs win. Toronto, wow. Hello, MLW Fishing. What's happening? The Hobby with Cage Lawyer. The Cage Lawyer's recently single, by the way. He's hobby single, I should say.
He is hobby single. Yes, hobby single and poor because of Cashnado. That's a whole nother story in Vegas. Don't ask that guy about slot machines. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I figured there had to be something there. What is going on, Eric? Good to see you. He says, glad to finally see Corey on the show. Clay Phillips, what's going on? Show your slabs, Cassie. I recognize Cassie from shows for sure.
My wife. Yep.
Oh, that's your wife.
That's my wife. Yeah. Claire is my cousin.
Claire.
Cassie is my wife. Yep. 2 blondes. Look, I'm not living too bad.
I was thinking, Claire. Cassie, welcome to the show. Good to see you. And Perk says, I've been meaning to ask Corey this for almost a year. My hobbying fuels my top 50 PC. How much for a custom wall mount that can hold 50 of both standard size slabs?
Perfect. I can work and do the show. So hold on, let me pull up my little quote book, and we'll just knock this out. Be a lot easier.
Grab an order form, and Perk will just fill it out.
Right. Jeremy will use code Sports Card Live and get 10% off.
Right on. And by the way, for everybody watching, Corey, if you don't know, and I'm guessing we've got about 50 people in the room right now. I'm guessing, at least 48 of you know about Corey and Show Your Slabs. But if you don't, that nameplate right there, that's a Dale Hawerchuk. That's 9 cards out of Upper Decks the Cup. Each is a 1-1, spelling out the last name Hawerchuk. That is a display that Corey sent to me that has been sitting above that closet for quite some time now.
I used to bribe him to get on the show.
He had to bribe me to get on the show, and then I made him wait how long?
A long time. I really thought I should have sent you 2 displays in retrospect, because I maybe could have cut that time in half. But
well, we got you on, Corey.
Yeah.
We got you on for sure. For sure. Darcy in the house. What's going on, Darcy? Darcy's going to be my booth mate at the Edmonton Expo next weekend. Good to see you, Darce. And Perk is willing to take you up on that discount, Corey. So there you go. Hey, where do people go to see your? Let's get this out of the way right now. Is it showyourslabs.com?
Yep, it's showyourslabs.com. That's going to have mainly all of our stock items. The 9 card, 25 card where you customize the label, all the stuff we have stock, and then there's a custom request little Google form that you fill out because look, everyone's got 9 cards that spell Hawerchuk on it. I mean, that not normal, right?
Hawerchuk.
Yeah, that I can't even say it right. It's too long. So, but I get requests for like, oh, I would need a display for 49.5 cards, and I'm like, well, where'd the half come from? But nobody's ever, so you can only make. But anyway, go to showyourslabs.com. It's got all the standard stuff on there. But anything you see there, anything you can take a picture of, we can put it on your wall.
So you did actually send me 2 displays. You also sent me this one, which I put in. And it's great. It fits the tag slab. So I got 12 of my tag slabs in here.
Those look good.
Yeah, all the different colors. Looks really nice.
I love seeing. That's one of the. And not even for me, just anybody that displays their stuff. Anything that's that like refractor, like I got a tag Genesis Lamar. That light that like just makes it looks like a completely different display one side to the other. Yeah,
it's awesome. And these slabs are all in like slab, they're in these guys right here. Actually, these are called Defend Pro. This is a new sleeve company.
I haven't seen that one.
No, they're new. They approached me at the Expo last weekend and gave me the 2 sample bags. One made for PSA, one made for Beckett, and the PSA size works perfectly for the tag slabs, or very close to perfect for the tag slabs. So that's what I use. But these are actually as good, if not better, than any competing product I've seen out there, just in terms of the clarity and the fit. Like it's like there's.
I honestly, that's surprising, because I normally tell people don't put them in the bags when you put them in the display, because again, the reason you put them in a bag is because you don't want it to get scratched. And unless somebody's throwing something at your wall, you shouldn't get them scratched when they're up on the wall. But I didn't even realize they were in them, to be honest. So that's kind of a endorsement there.
Yeah. That was this bag. They're called Defend Pro, precise fit graded card sleeves. It's a Canadian company. I met them at the Toronto Expo. They were set up with dollies. The guy's name was Chris, and he gave me the samples. So here we go. We're spreading information.
Yeah.
But I really like them. I really like them as a solution for keeping your slabs nice and scratch free. Hockey Barn says that the Toronto's going to plan a parade now for getting into the second round. That hasn't happened in a while. They kind of should. They have something to celebrate right now. Foul 5 ball in the house. We got baseball card curmudgeon. That was Jeremy. That is Baz. We got Frank Estella. LGC in the house. Says you sold an OR 8. No regrets. Congrats. He's referring to the fact that I did sell one of my best cards at the Expo last weekend. I had a PSA 8 Bobby Orr, and I did sell it.
Got a lot of loonies and toonies though.
I big bag of loonies and toonies. You're right, Corey. And I was when Leighton comes on, I wanted to talk to him about it, because I traded it away only because I have this copy that I like more, and it's a lower grade. So. But we'll wait for Leighton to come on. I want to get his opinion on that move, which I'm sure he'll I don't want to say I'm sure, but I have to think he might think I made the wrong move because I gave up the higher grade to keep the lower grade, but I also got something in return for that. So
yeah, I hope you bring that part up. You have to bring the number up, but I mean that's the main.
Yeah. Lash Wine says I've got one of those too. He's talking about the Defend Pro sleeves. And Vintage Card Collector lets us know that McDavid just scored. And if you think about it, the Oilers are up 3-2 in the series, and McDavid hasn't even really woken up yet in the series. Maybe tonight is the night, and they can end it and finish off the LA Kings in 4 games. We'll see what happens. All right. Anything else random before we jump
real quick? Is McDavid, and I don't. Pardon me, I'm not a hockey guy. I just kind of watch, and my dad actually played college hockey, so I know how to skate, and I know, kind of got into it, not hockey, but skating young. Is McDavid the guy that everyone, comparative to, is he living up to all the hype? Is he LeBron, or is he like Luka?
Oh no, he's he kind of, so I mean, LeBron started in 2003. Obviously, McDavid didn't start till 2015, and Luka 2018, I think. So it's hard to make that comparison. But I will say, I would consider him to be, LeBron has some championships, McDavid doesn't. He needs them. It's tough. It's a tough comparison to make. But
no, it is. But if you're saying closer to LeBron, because if you think about LeBron, I mean, obviously history doesn't get remembered, but I remember when they were showing pictures of a kid with a Hummer, like that had to live up to this giant expectation and actually lived up to it. Like,
he's lived up. He came up with great expectation. He has definitely lived. He's clearly by far the best player in the world today. It's not. And even, that's all. It's not even that close. Is LeBron in his prime was clearly the best player on the court, So yeah. I think it's fair to say that he's lived up to the expectation. It's a Card Knock Life says McDavid is above and beyond the type, and the best is yet to come. I mean, he's still young, he's what is he, 25 years old, something like that. So he's got 10 solid years still left in the tank, I would say. And they seem, I like they made you need a whole team to win the Stanley Cup. It's a team sport, and they did a nice trade at the trade deadline where they picked up Matthias Ekholm, a defenseman who's he's got a great shot, a great power play quarterback kind of guy. I think that was a transitional move for them. And they've got some of these other guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, who are really stepping up and playing at their top level. So I think the Leafs are looking good, the Oilers are looking good right now. We'll see. It's early on in the night, but we'll see what happens. Reed in the house says the Leafs actually did it. Yes, they did. And he goes on to say McDavid and Draisaitl in the playoffs somehow have another level. Yeah, and Draisaitl is, a guy that could be the best player in the league if not for Connor, and he's overshadowed playing right with Connor McDavid. So,
and Bedard's the next one.
Bedard is touted to be the next Connor McDavid. Yeah, it's going to be a Connor versus Connor era. Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid. We'll see where he ends up.
Eesh.
Yeah, lots of Connors. So I first met you, Corey. I feel like I knew you from maybe just Instagram and all that, but I met you at the 2021 National. Felt like I knew you when I saw you there. That goes back, we're 2 years. It feels like longer actually, but I think that's when it was, right?
I was going to say, I think that I think there was a Expo before that maybe you got sick, or you couldn't come, and we had talked on, either Clubhouse, wherever it was, we, had discussion.
That was last May, so that's only a year ago. I'd met you the July before in Chicago National. Yep. That's right. And now, I mean, there's lots of talk about Clubhouse. There has been recently a lot of talk about Clubhouse, but I've spent some time on there in the last couple of years, as have you. So, I feel like I know you pretty well. You come up to the Toronto Expos. I've seen you at the last two. We definitely travel in some of the same circles. So it's nice to finally get you on the show. Let's learn a bit more about you, though. You started to show your slabs. What were you doing in the hobby? And generally in life, before you started to show your slabs from, I don't know, even start 2010 through the present, something like that.
Yeah. So kind of to back it up like you said in the intro, I started collecting and like every kid was a collector of everything and highlighted Marvel and X-Men and stuff like that, just because unfortunately we didn't have great teams. So there wasn't a huge baseball card, but always baseball cards too. Honestly, the baseball cards probably ended up in my bike spokes to sound like a motorcycle. But and then everything to me was always, I had to finalize every collection, and it went from Pogs to Beanie Babies to the McDonald's toys that were exclusive. And so the collecting bug has always been there. My mom has it, and she's probably one of my biggest catalysts, where we would be sneaking stuff in the back door so my dad didn't see it, routinely. But so fast forward, obviously, like everyone else, you go through school and come out. And I was always somebody that never was afraid to work. And not that people are afraid to, but always thought that you work hard, you get what you put in, nobody's going to do it for you. Had, as a little kid, had snow shoveling was like, I would just work myself to the bone, and usually have like 4 or 5 kids running we would make a couple $1,000s as young kids, like, because we would just hit every, thing. So I got bit early by the entrepreneurial thing. And also I was terrible at school. I just couldn't focus. Like the testing and stuff was just never my thing. So, and then coming out of high school, I was working for my uncle's law firm, and I started, it was working in the summer in these storage lockers. It was 100 and some degrees, and I had to keep all the files in order, 7 to 10 storage lockers full of files. I thought, this is this is impossible. There's got to be a better way to do this. It was probably, I was about 21. And for other reasons, I needed to start my own business. A buddy of mine had just got injured, and I was spending time going back and forth from the hospital. So I had to figure out a way to work my own hours, and, whether it was 12 at night to 2 in the morning, and go to the hospital during the day. So I started a document scanning company, and my uncle was my first customer. I, invested a lot into a heavy duty scanner, spent, researching and figuring out, okay, how do we take all these documents digital? And it was a hit. As far as it was a need, right? And I'm able to fill a need and kind of work my own hours. I can scan whenever I wanted to. And really that business was started too for the buddy I was visiting in the hospital. Was Iraq. He was wounded in Iraq, lost both legs in an IED in 2006. And we've been best friends since 5th grade. So I wanted to start something really for him to help get out of the hospital. I didn't know if he would live or die at the initial point, but once I started seeing him come out, I wanted him to have something where, maybe he could do it, and we could go after government contracts. And, in the States, government contracting, stuff like that's a big, big deal. As it turns out, the government pays you more money to stay home and do nothing than they take away stuff when you start making money. So anyway, I ran that up to get the sports cards. I was watching breaks online on Facebook, and it was probably 8 months to a year before COVID. Because the funny thing is, COVID was the gas on the already burning fire, but the sports card market was on a major uptick. The trajectory was crazy, because I was seeing these card prices and the box prices. I think it was a 3-team break, random team. I got the Mavericks. It was $100, and that spot today is, I don't know, 500-600. If you multiply it over, and that's not even the peak. But so I hit the Luca, and the funny thing was, I got into it because I like the gambling aspect of it. And I thought, a nice way to kind of make a little bit of extra money on the side. And I am interested in sport, collecting part of it. So I've already graded this thing a 10. I'm only seeing it through my iPhone, but I've never graded a card before, but it's already a 10 in my head. So I turned $100 into, at the time was $1,700 was the base Luka was going for. Got that card in, about 10 other cards that I sent out for grading, and I got them in my hand, and I thought I wouldn't sell these for $5,000. I didn't care. Like it was right when Luka was in the playoffs and he hit that game winner, and I'm watching it and I'm holding the card and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like it was just that rush of, and all the while I have a, now 6-year-old, and he's kind of finding his way into it, whether it's Pokemon or whatever. And that kind of led me into the displaying of it. Now, one thing I'll tell you is about me, and if Cassie's still in here, she'll give a thumbs up to this. 9.5 times out of 10, I always try to do it myself. And 9.5 times out of 10, it's an epic failure or a giant waste of time, or like I'll change my oil to prove that I can change my own oil, and it's the winter and I'm covered in oil and I save $5, and I'm like, okay, like I should have just went to Jiffy Lube. But this was that 0.5 or even less. That was like, there really isn't anything out there, as far as like displaying cards. Yeah, there's cabinets that look like they come from IKEA, and just looking at the whole landscape of the hobby, you can look at a show and realize that nobody's taken any. There's a lot of unfinished product or projects at the Fick household, but we'll get to those. So yeah, I honestly, I just was like, man, I'd love to have. And one thing I thought was like, because one of our big models is the 9 cards that look like a PSA slab. It's similar to this, but has cards here. And I thought, man, it'd be cool to have my own slab. And unfortunately, I'm too out of shape. I'll never be a professional sports athlete. I have a big hat, but I don't wear it enough to get on a card. So I'm not going to have my own card. So I thought, well, my collection is representative of me, right? So let's take that design and kind of blow it up. And there was our first display, and then it was just kind of off to the races.
All right. Well, that does take us through to where it is now. Really quick, 902 says the Leafs advance. What kind of universe paradox did I wake up in? Because that was not expected to happen. We also find out that the LA Kings have tied it up with the Oilers. All right. So, I mean, I got a lot of stuff down, and I wanted to. I don't know if you just really mentioned it there, but I was going to ask you, like, when you started to show your slabs, what was the real aha moment that you're like, I'm going to start this? Was it just the fact that you, as you just said, you wanted your own slab? So, or, you thought you'd like to have something that was similar to your own slab. So I'll make a display case. And what was there a particular moment when you realized that all these display cases are really just IKEAs, or when did the light bulb really go off for you? What was that moment?
It was probably, I ran a business beforehand, so it's not all is like, oh, I just want to make a cool display case, and somebody came to me and said, I'll buy that from you for $200, and like, it wasn't that kind of thing. It was, wow, I'm watching the card market go up. I'm trying to, see where everything's going, and really, I'm very good at fulfilling like niche problems, just like the document scanning. My uncle would have had no idea about this if I didn't bring it to him. So I'm very good at like solving the problem and bringing it to the person who has the problem, right? And then kind of a totally different deal in the fact that it's a consumer product. So then, again, you walk through life going, man, I wish I would have thought of that. Man, I wish I would have thought of that. Then you think of it, and then you're like, oh crap, don't screw this up. Like that's just where it begins. Like, and you can either, a lot of things go nowhere and things can go somewhere. But I really saw this as like watching everything in the hobby go up, and watching kind of all these, these tech companies and all this stuff. And that's all great. And like, I get it, but like, at the end of the day, the collector's a collector, and like, they don't want their cards vaulted. Like, yeah, I guess there are that section, and that's fine. There's a section that has, cards that I'll never get to put on the wall because they never leave a bank vault. That's fine. I'm not really concerned about those guys. I'm concerned about the guy that has a collection that he wants his buddies to enjoy when they're down drinking beers and doesn't have to sit next to them and, pull out, no offense, their Zion case because they're fantastic for traveling and taking your slabs everywhere else. Shout out to Clint. But I just know my buddies, if they're not into cards and I'm trying to get them into cards, if I sat next to them with a box of cards and tried to go, look, I tell you, this is worth this much, they would probably slap the card out of my hand and tell me to beat it. So it was more of that kind of how card collector can express himself in a cool way. And then also, build a real business. I didn't really see it going to, and I didn't really understand the amount of where this thing can go until I got into it. And just saw there's many verticals past just the simple display.
Right. Yeah. Makes good sense. I like how you're really focused on the collector and the collector who wants to look at their cards. You have your friends over and now they're sitting up on a wall. They're not in a box or even worse, pictures on your phone that you got to show them, which, we tend to do when we're not with our cards, which is often, but I like that. I like that idea. Okay. Quick hello to Colin Murray. Good to see you, buddy. Now let's bring on Leighton Sheldon because we're going to do the vintage spotlight segment here. And I'm going to ask him the question that I sort of touched on before. Leighton, how are you? First of all, welcome back to the show. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm well. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. What's going on, Corey? How are you?
How's it going, Leighton? Good to see you. We got to talk. I was talking with Zablo about you got a nice store in New York.
Yeah, well, just outside the city. But yeah, close enough.
Awesome.
So Leighton, first of all, what I want to let you know and just get your thoughts on it. And of course, there's not only one right answer, but this affects me personally or something that I did last weekend. I wanted to tell you what I did last weekend at the Sport Card Expo in Toronto. I told the audience here, about.
I feel like he's your priest.
What's that?
I feel like he's your priest, and you're about to confess something.
I'm confessing. As I had said, publicly, I feel like I lost a piece of my hobby soul, Leighton, because I moved out a card that I had owned for 15 or 16 years, and it was a card that really formed a part of my hobby. I'm calling it my hobby soul. I don't know what else to call it, because it was my PSA 8 Bobby Orr rookie card, 1966 Topps, and it was my best card for many, many years. And
you sold that at the Expo?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I wish I would have seen it.
So let me tell you very quick.
Hold on. What would Leighton? What would you have paid for it?
I have to see the card. I want to see the centering, but I mean, I have to tell you, Jeremy, that's a big deal.
That's why it's a big deal. You're right. I'd owned it. Leighton, you know what it's like. It's like it's not a T206 Honus Wagner, but pretend you own a T206 Honus Wagner.
It might as well be, Jeremy.
Well, it's that level of importance for the hockey card world, at least. And I felt it was an 8. It was one of the 45 or so nicest copies in the world, or at least highest graded. Sure. It was a below average 8. The buyer, upon inspecting it, said it out loud.
PSA or SGC?
PSA.
Sure.
It was a below average 8. It was, I bought it in 2007 or 8. So it's an older slab. I never had it reslabbed. But Leighton, the reason why I was willing to sell it was because I have other copies of it, and I have this copy here, which is it's actually a 5.5, but I like it better. It has the defects on the 8 were more of an aesthetic penalty against aesthetics for me than those on this 5.5. So that's what I did. And I guess what I wanted to bring up with you tonight is like, I don't know if this is a trend or what, but I was willing to let it go because I have a copy that I like better, even though it's a lower grade. And I like the looks of my 5.5, believe it or not, better than the 8. The centering wasn't as good. It had a little bit of I don't know if you'd call it fading or something on the surface, like right up in the wood grain at the top here. Corners were perfect, edges were perfect, and it had a little bit of a centering issue. This copy is just, I think, better center, doesn't have any of that fading up there. The 8 also had superior color. So despite all that, I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to move the card out. I'm going to have this. I'm going to be just as happy with. So I don't have any seller's remorse, but I do feel like I lost a bit of my hobby soul. And I think I'll get over that. But what do you think of that? What do you think of all that?
Can you tell him how many Hail Marys and Our Fathers he's got to do so we can...
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's something like that. I'll give him a little recipe so how he can, move on. So Jeremy, the first thing I want to say is congratulations. Because if you sold the 8 and, you got fair money for it, even if it was a little bit, as you said, maybe not the strongest 8, and you have a copy that you like, to me, that's a hobby win. I'm not saying business, just a hobby win. But, and I know Corey, I was listening to him for a few minutes, and I clearly a hobbyist at heart who started, something very entrepreneurial, I think is really super cool. And so I'd ask both of you the same question, whether it be a Bobby Orr card or something else. Because the truth is, I think I know you at least well enough, Jeremy, so far, that if you had unlimited funds, you would not have sold the 8. You probably would have kept the 8. You would have kept the 5.5. And I could also see you being on the prowl for a 9. So the reason why I bring it up is because I feel like very much it just teaches you about life, right? You can't have it all. So you've determined to find the beauty in your diamond that's a 5.5. And even though there's a higher graded diamond, which you're well aware of, someone else is going to enjoy that higher graded diamond while you sit there and enjoy still a wonderful diamond. And that's the way that I would look at it. But I know for me, forget about an individual card. And I bought something really cool the other day, which if we have one I'd love to mention. But if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't even target a card. I literally know I would make it like my life's mission to just buy, acquire. No, I would trade, right? I'd have fun. But if I didn't have to worry about the financial aspect of it whatsoever, and there was just unlimited funds, I realized that it may run its course and I may not be as interested in 1 year or 5 years or whatever the time period is. But that's my 2 cents on the subject, Jeremy.
Jeremy looks like he's going to cry.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm thinking about this unlimited money thing. And at the end of the day, if I had unlimited money, I wouldn't care if I had a 10, 9, or 8. I'd just want the copy that I like the most, because you can own anything at that point. So maybe not. It's always fun to think about having.
Circle back to so that Luca that I pulled that I said I would never sell. It came. So I had gone through prototyping and all this. I had my first run of actual displays. I had no money, sold it for $1,500 and funded I literally was like, couldn't, and again, it's a Luca base prism, nothing crazy, but like, it was that first card that got that like crazy reaction. And I told myself it would, like, I wasn't going to sell this. I was watching prices go up, didn't even care, didn't even look at them. But when the need came to, I thought, hey, if this thing works out, I'll buy another. Well, little did I know I could buy probably 10 of them now. But I thought, man, worst case scenario, if this thing works, I can buy it back. So you sell for your needs and, unlimited money.
Well, that's right. I mean, you sell because the time was right. I took it with me, not expecting to sell it, but I got an offer that I felt like that's the right offer. I countered it. They accepted my counter and off to the races we went. And so, Corey says I look like I want to cry. Sylvan here says that I looked conflicted, bummed after I sold Dior. What I was in shock. It wasn't that I was conflicted, bummed, or about to cry. Literally, it was that I was in shock that I moved this card that I had held dearly and tightly, thinking I was never going to sell it. But then I realized that, you know what, it's not a grade 8. It's not like, if it was the best 8, I don't know that I would have moved it, you know, but it wasn't. It had its issues. So
I don't even think you need to do that though. Like I honestly think you love that 5 and just roll with the 5.5.
And that's
like,
exactly what I'm doing.
You don't have to worry about the up centering or the this and the that. Like
Well, but you do. That's what it comes down to, is how much you love the specific copy. Leighton, go ahead.
Listen, I agree with you. I agree with you both. You want to be happy with the specific copy of the card. But I do feel your torment, Jeremy. I understand what you mean. I sold a couple cards. I remember last year at the National. Didn't really expect to sell them. When you sell them, I understand the feeling of shock. But I would say this, at least the lessons that I've learned in the last, couple of years, on top of everything else, I don't really want the stuff to own me. So if you feel comfortable owning a sweet copy that's a 5.5, I'll throw in there, and I love the Orr card. If I, had a really cool story behind a Bobby Orr rookie, I might just be happy with that copy, knowing the lineage and the provenance behind it. So there's no judgment. There's no jury. It is fun to discuss, though. And I didn't understand what you meant at first about shock, but now I do, because it's like set in. I thought about a few cards. Yeah, I don't think I would cry, but I don't know if I would jump in the streets either. I would take a moment to be like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. And then I had to process it, that my internal identity as far as the hobby goes, that has always been I've had the specific card as a part of that, is now no longer in my ownership. So, does my maybe hobby soul, hobby identity, internal though, not how I'm looked at, just how I look at my own collection. This was the centerpiece of my collection for a lot of years. And now I'm so much more of the buy the card, not the grade mentality, that I was willing to, would I buy that same card for the amount I sold it for today? Probably not. So let's sell it. I have a great copy in its place. Very quickly though here, Vintage Card Collector here says, unless a card is truly not replaceable, for most of us, everything is for sale for the right price. And I think in my case, I had it replaced already, because I had another card to slide in and become the new one. Mark Santucci says, as much as I hate the Boston Bruins, that's a nice Orr. Do you have the Esposito rookie, the Phil? I certainly do have the Phil Esposito rookie card, Mark Santucci. Now, Leighton, you see what Corey does with Show Your Slabs, these displays. How do you have you ever seen one with a bunch of vintage cards in them? How would they look in Corey's Show Your Slab displays, one of your nice vintage sets or something?
Sure. So hopefully I'm thinking approximately 3 to 5 business days after today's call, I'll let you know, because I've never seen them, but I'm hoping I'm going to have something show up on the doorstep of our offices in our store in Millburn, New Jersey. I've seen it plenty of times at our good buddy Mark Zabel, who we just mentioned from Bleecker Trading a few minutes ago. We've seen it at his store on display. But Jeremy, to answer your question directly, I've not really seen one or a display of his filled up with vintage. And I'd like to. I think that'd be fun. For sure.
Corey, you got any questions for Leighton?
And that's the interesting thing about vintage, right? Is the card stock, and I know what I battle with vintage mostly is, people don't want the cards out in the sunlight and worrying about, fading and detailing. And I get that. And we have obviously solutions for that. We have individual UV slabs that go over the card that just covered 120% of the card. We have full covers. But it's interesting, and this is kind of a question. And do you know the highest grade SGC Wagner?
You're asking me?
Yeah, and there'll be a story to follow.
So I'm pretty sure, at least from my recollection, I think it's a 5.
It is a 5.
There you go.
And the owner of that card keeps it in a vault in a safe. Where would that card be valued at? Name a price. It's
I don't know, $10 million or
if
$20 million.
If not, right.
Something extreme that I don't have to buy, but I'd like to.
Right. So he has this card, and this guy is a through and through collector. Just I had never met him before he had approached me at a show, but Blake Jameson, he had him paint an exact replica of the card because that card stays in the vault, right? It doesn't see sunlight, doesn't get messed with. It was probably, I don't know, 3 feet high, to the point where I know that he sent pictures to him and the guy was like, no, this is too nice. Like, I want all the cracks. I want all the corners cut off. I want he wanted the exact card. So to make it even more exact, he painted the SGC label, and we built a 5-foot tall SGC slab that holds this thing. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. He's got really it for the Wagner, and he's got the Babe Ruth. I
think I know who it is.
You know who it is, right?
Yeah.
So he had come to me at a show, and he said, I'd never met him, dealt with his handlers when we were doing the shipping and all that. And it was the craziest thing because he's telling me about where these things are and showing me pictures. And it's the Wagner, the Ruth, like Pollock, Van Gogh, like the craziest art you just have ever seen. And I'm thinking, like, why are these paintings up there? And he told me every time any one of his friends or any business partners come up, he directs them right to those 2 cars. And he says, he's like, all this other stuff is whatever. I own those 2 cars, so kind of just to go back to the vintage thing. I while there is the risk of, because the cars are older stock, I do think the vintage collectors love and enjoy being able to show them, maybe not as much on the wall and that kind of stuff, but at least talk about them. And in this case, have enough money to have a 5-foot version of it made. But no, I know not everyone can do that, but I really do think vintage collectors are collectors. As much as values are all there, like set building and all that is so cool. So I'm actually excited. I want to get up to your store and check it out. I'll be in New York Tuesday, so maybe I'll stop by.
Yeah, definitely. Send me a DM, please.
Leighton, anything that you wanted to shout out going on Just Collect or Vintage Breaks or the new cards you picked up? I saw your post on Instagram. You picked up some amazing stuff. As you always see, like I always say that you're a professional baseball card hunter, but you're also somebody who finds stuff on the regular. You're always uncovering this awesome stuff. So what's going on right now? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about this collection I was able to purchase the other day. And then I am going to plug the Vintage Breaks event, which ends tomorrow at the end. So check this out. And you know how things go, right? People email you or they call you or even they text you. And, they have such and such. Then you see images. And then, the next worst thing you can hear is, well, I'm talking to 11 different people. I'm talking to 7 auction houses. I'm talking to 3 individual collectors. I'm talking to my cousin Billy. And you're like, my former schoolmate Johnny. I'm like, listen, I got no chance of buying this collection. So fast forward, this gentleman sends over some pictures. And he was talking to John from our office, who handles a lot of at least the initial contact. And, the gentleman was very fast paced with communication, but seemed to be well, the owner needs to come out to my house today or to where I am today. And he was visiting New Jersey. Nothing was really quite clear. And, I don't really like to go on wild goose chases. So I'm like, hey, we'll be here all day for you. Why don't you come on by? And so he didn't come by that day. But he came by the next day, unannounced, 15 minutes before my podcast, Jeremy. And so, like a good podcast soldier, I'm like, listen, I'm going to be live for a little bit. So John stalled him, talked to him about the birds and the bees, the local deli, what's going on with the lottery, all of this different kind of stuff to stall him. And so fast forward, the guy is from Puerto Rico and has been living in Puerto Rico for several decades. Okay. He's married to a Colombian woman. They're over in Colombia to see her family in 1987. We've all been in this spot, not necessarily in Colombia, but where our significant other is going into Bed Bath & Beyond, going into some other errand, frankly, that you don't want to do. And you're like, I'm gonna just happen to see if there's a card shop in the area. That's the way he was describing it to me. He's at this flea market. He has no interest in being there. So he made it a mission to ask every single vendor if they had any cards. So he mainly struck out. It was towards the end of walking around. And he asked this woman, "You have any cards?" The woman's like, "I don't understand what you're talking about. You mean the large ones?" She's like, "I don't have those." So he's walking away and she's screaming at him. Because you know how it is at a flea market. You want to make a sale. She's like, "I don't have the big ones, but I have the small ones." I'm like, "What? I don't really understand what you're talking about here. Hopefully it's cards." So he tells me that she takes out, now they weren't in card savers back then, but an almost near complete 1933 Gaudy Sport Kings set of 47 cards, only missing the tie cob. This is what's crazy. Other people may get upset about this. It was just kind of part of the story and funny. So it's like a heated negotiation back and forth, which if you want to read the full story, check out our blog at blog.justcollect.com. We ultimately reach a deal. No sooner when I give him the check, literally he was just sitting on this. He couldn't wait to share this nugget with me. He's like, "You want to know how much I paid?" I'm like, "I don't care." He's like, "You want to know how much you paid?" I'm like, "You're going to tell me anyway, so you might as well tell me." He's like, $7. I'm like, $7 per card? He's like, "No, $7 total." I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. So I'm like, I can do the math. I'm like, "You negotiated pretty hard." He's like, "Yeah, well, I need the extra 500 for this and that." I'm like, "Get out of here." Meanwhile, we shook hands, we took video. And without exaggeration, he was in visiting family from from Puerto Rico in New Jersey. And he carried the set with him in the hopes that he would meet with an auction house or someone like ourselves, get it appraised and maybe have it sold. And he has some more cards apparently from this flea market 1987 Columbia find.
Crazy.
I can't wait to see the rest.
Did he know what to look for? Like, is he a card
There was
guy?
a little bit of a language barrier. John, who works for us, is from Peru and speaks fluent Spanish. So even though he could communicate in English, there was like some of, the idiosyncrasies of the language that I couldn't quite figure out. It struck me as this. He had a few dollars in his pocket. He was looking to buy some old cards. He had no idea what they were worth. Frankly, I don't think he had any idea even what they were. He's just like, "Hey, these are cool. I can afford them." And he's held them since 1987. By the way, he has one card graded. That's it.
Neat.
Wow.
And everything else is ungraded.
Right on. So guys, if you want to follow Leighton on Instagram at Leighton_Sheldon, at @just_collect. His podcast, as he mentioned, is Trading Card Therapy. You got something going on Vintage Break. Shout that out before you go.
Oh, sure. I appreciate it, Jeremy. So tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern time, we have the end of our big event, and we're giving away a 1956 Topps Roberto Clemente second year PSA 6. It's a gorgeous card. Thousands of dollars in break credit, 2022 National Treasures baseball box, and a lot of other great stuff. If you'd like to tune in, you can find us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/vintage breaks. And we'll be breaking from noon till 10 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Long day. Well, good luck with that, man. Good to see you. Thanks for the vintage talk. I always enjoy it. Corey, thanks, Corey, for having some great stories to tell too.
Lastly, Leighton, you have to pick a card to put into a slab chain. I
Absolutely.
may have to do like a
several I
vintage.
have, in mind. Yeah. Corey, it was great seeing you and spending time together on the show. Jeremy, congratulations on your Bobby Orr.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and check this out, Leighton, before you go. I picked this up at the Toronto Expo too.
Oh, that's the autogram you mentioned. What's that graded? I can't see.
It's a 3.5, but it looks like a 6. I don't know why it's a 3.5.
I love autogram. I love the 1950 Bowman football set. They're like all miniature works of art. Congratulations. Nice pickup.
To me, it's just so iconic and beautiful. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite pickup from the Toronto Expo. All right, Leighton. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.
Take it easy.
All right. Thank you, Leighton. So, Corey, first of all, Sports Card Stallion says, Corey from Show Your Slabs is the man. Huge asset to the hobby. Very nice. That is Alex Pashon, who was on.
Yeah, he's just saying that because I let him set up for free at my table in Toronto.
There you go. There you go. As you also, you had Amanda with you. You had David Marino with you there for a little while. what's going on? It's just the community table or what?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and that's where it's crazy. I have displays, so it's the perfect thing. If somebody wants to sell cards, I'm not selling cards, so it's win-win.
Yeah.
I make custom stuff for them to put it up in, and people
Perfect.
go. I mean, a lot of people see all their cool stuff and they go, "But where is this case from? Like, how are these up? How are they up in the air? I don't
Just
understand."
look at the banner. Just look at the banner hanging up behind it, right?
Yeah.
Right on. Yankees fan says here, for tonight's show and the two stories, beauty is in the eye of the holder. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a slab holder or eye of the beholder, but I get what you're saying and definitely agree. Collector's Dream, what's going on? Bobby Burrell says, as long as you're in the hobby, you have not found your favorite card or collectible yet, the chase will always outweigh the kill. I mean, that's something that I've talked about before a lot, Corey, is that, we buy cards, they arrive, or, you bring them into your collection. We're looking for that next card right away. It's like we as collectors feel like we're just never satisfied. And that could be a deeper psychological analysis to be had I'm sure it has been into, the mind of a collector. So yeah, interesting. Dennis Zender in the house. What's up, Dennis? DPZ, good to see you. And Terry Fortune, of course, I know about that, and you are just a big Bobby Orr fan, but don't worry, Terry, I still have a beautiful Orr in my collection. Joe Perot in the house, all the way from Hawaii. What's going on, Joe? Good to see you. And the professor says, I'm still absorbing the great content from last night's Toronto Expo debrief by you with Sam, Mikey Reed. What does he say here? Would you ever consider regrading your PSA 5.5, or perhaps you think it may have been undergraded? Professor, I would not consider regrading my 5.5. I feel like if they can't grade it right the first time, I don't want to pay a grading company twice to do something that they should get right the first time. But a lot of people in our hobby are willing to pay twice for that because they often just get it wrong the first time, and the hobby just understands that and knows about that. So it is what it is, but not me, Professor. I'm going to be happy with the card and not worry so much about the holder.
If you need it cracked, I can help you out.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. 1956 Tops guy is here. Matt, good to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. One of the most popular episodes in Sports Cards Live history was with Matthew Rocker talking about his 1952 Tops Mickey Mantle pickup at this year's Burbank show back in February. Okay, Corey, so I also wanted to talk to you, like, you're building a business in the hobby. It's a consumer product, and you are also, it feels to me like you put yourself out there. You're at all the shows, you're out there, you're hustling, you're talking to the vendors, but you're also on social media. You're on Instagram, you're on Clubhouse quite a bit, talking to the folks that congregate there. How important has it been to you, and how important do you feel it is for other startup companies in the space to build these relationships like you have? And like, has your presence on social media been part of that strategy, not to undermine your authenticity and wanting to meet people, but is it part of your strategy in terms of building the Show Your Slabs brand?
It's interesting. In the beginning, I would have said yes. And I do think that relationships in this, especially when you're in a product industry where, you're selling something that you made, yes, and maybe you have some protection and patents or whatever, but it's not, there's nothing that stop anyone else. So sometimes there can be, competition or whatever it is. And you want to kind of use yourself to perpetuate what you're selling and what you're doing. Right. But I'm finding out now that there's a lot of there's so much value in that, but it also really can hinder growth as far as maybe it wasn't the right decision. I don't know, because I'm now finding myself yes, I have to be at everything. I have to do this. And trying to build out a team. Maybe I don't trust the person and you're seeing it with breaking, right? You're seeing these guys that hire a kid to do breaking, and the kid's sitting there always I like this card. He's just going to keep it and just destroy your brand, right? I think that the hobby in general it makes sense because it's still so niche and still really at the precipice of like bubbling to grow. But I think going forward, like it's tough. You really have to have a plan and strategy if you do tie yourself to a brand so much, because when are you not, right? Where can it go? Just you, for instance, like, you caught a bunch of crap for who you align yourself with. And maybe you align yourself with somebody at this point, and then things changed and you align yourself with that point. And in this hobby, there's so many just kind of people waiting to pick that off. And like, it's just wild to me. But all in all, yes, I think it's been super beneficial. But I would caution anybody to kind of plan it out better than I did, and maybe have like a group, or like, because you can find yourself tied to it, and it really can hinder your overall growth for just a company that offers a product.
So speaking of, a company offers a product, what's the competition been for you? Have there been people that have sort of seen what you're doing and trying to do something similar? And also I'm curious about your plans to scale and really build this business. So speak to those.
Yeah. And there's been competition. It's funny. There was one, I've been kind of fortunate in that I haven't had any major, really pushes as some of my friends, i.e. Slabstrong and, Tim and Dan from Stand Up Displays and even their competition. I welcome competition. I'll be tense on to the next thing before they can catch up to the first thing, in my opinion. And honestly, if I didn't have if there wasn't that always looming thing of there is competition, then I probably wouldn't be as driven to take this thing to the lengths that it can go. And then but there's a funny story. So this guy DMs me like, I don't know, a year ago on Instagram. And that's, again, where maybe I shouldn't be even dealing with this DM. Like, because he's asking me if my patent's published somewhere, he can see it. And I'm like, that's an interesting question, but okay. Like, I'm not really going to engage this. Like, what's the point? But I'm always, then I get my defense mode on, and I'm like, why, or what's up? And he's like, I had a similar idea, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't infringing. And I'm like, well, I don't know, do your own research. Like, call a patent attorney. Don't call me. Don't ask the guy. Like, so I didn't think of anything. And then about 6 months later, I get a DM from a buddy of mine. He's like, have you seen this on Facebook? And it's literally the same thing. Like, it's the same product. Now, what he did was, which I've had customers come to me who has bought his and since bought mine. Like, he did engineer it a little differently, that it's like friction fit, but you dig underneath of it and pull it out with your finger and stuff. So, more power to him. But what really pissed me off is that you look at and again, I'm emulating a PSA slab, so I can't really say that I'm not, like, I'm original, but I am original. Like, PSA doesn't have a problem with me because I'm not like, yes, I want it to look like their slab because I want people to put their slabs in it. I do the same for Becca, I do the same for Tag, I do it for all of them. Because I want people to put their cards and get more cards graded and put more cards up. But this guy, even down to his, like, whatever the name of his company was, and I honestly don't even know what it is. I wouldn't say it if I did, but it was like S something S, like, and it's just like, be creative. Like, if you're gonna come into the space, I welcome it. I don't. Again, competition is great. Don't ask me how to rip me off, then rip me off, then also just use the same, and mind you, undercut me by like $20, which he will learn that will not scale, because I know all the processes. I've gone through all the hard, points of learning price point and all that stuff. And really, I haven't heard much since, I don't seek them out, but I don't run from competition because, again, I think it's good. I think it's healthy. But I do I do stand up for competition that isn't fair, or just is somebody trying to, capitalize on a market that they don't have any business in, or, and I'm not going to put them down. I'm just going to work harder, and I'm just going to, keep coming up with new stuff and grind and keep my head down and keep going and pushing and trying to figure out what, because at the end of the day, it's one or two things. If they copy me, then that's fine. They're never going to catch up to like why they're coming out with my first copy. I'm on to the 12th thing. If they come in and they're just trying to capitalize on the market, they're not going to know the nuances of the hobby. So they're gonna stub their toe. If they're a big company that has a bunch of money, they're gonna burn a bunch of cash trying to figure it out. I'd rather work with them if I can. If I can't, then we'll see where we land when the dust settles.
So are most of your customers like collectors, or because I know I've seen on your Instagram where you've actually outfitted complete LCSs, and the sports card professor wants to know what LCS is. It is a local card shop professor. LCS is simply a short form acronym for local card shop. But Corey, you've outfitted some LCSs with your product. So where are you focusing more, and how are you scaling? Are you a one-man show still? Are you doing all the craftsmanship yourself? And what percentage of your business, if you want to share, is collector versus LCS or promotional for companies and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'll probably keep a little bit of it to myself because I am going through a shift. There's things kind of have to change because I am a one-man show up till kind of now. I have some people that are partners, but it just the timing doesn't work out for everything, and it takes a lot. It really does take a lot. Put a lot into this, and the scalability was always kind of my wonder and concern, because at what point do, like, the collector is where you need to get to scale, but the LCS is the person who can get it to the collector to scale. So really right now we are doing a lot of card shops, and the greatest thing about the card shop to me is what we do with them. And I tell every customer this when I talk to them, every store owner, I'm not just going to sit here and, we're going to talk, design a display, work through it. It's not cheap. It's pretty much handcrafted as far as, it's not, I'm not doing it by hand, but it's a machine. It's all like, you got to plot everything out. Everything's done. I don't fabricate the big stuff. I do have manufacturing back. I have like a manufacturer locally that is one of the biggest in the country. So it just worked out that way. And he's fantastic in fabricating skill, but so he handles all the big stuff and the big orders and so we do have that. But what I tell the store owners is, when you take the time and you take the pride to build your store out, you will see an instant result, and you'll benefit from it. And there's data to prove it. So we built a store that was in Wayne, Pennsylvania. They were in business for 3.5 years prior, and they were about 900 square feet. I had done some business with the guy, fantastic, it's called Wheelhouse Sports Cards. And he had been telling me, hey man, we're like, stores packed all the time. He had a couple of our little wall displays. He said, we're looking to move right down the street, mile down the road. Like, this is it. We're going to move 800 square feet, 2,300 square feet. We want you to come in and just do your thing. Tell us what you think. Kind of, we're putting our trust in you. We got the money's here. Because frankly, if you're starting a card store, you probably have it online back. You're probably making your money on breaking. So a lot of these guys have money, and they can reinvest it. So what we did there is we did a giant wall display with PSA slabs. But what was really interesting was we did a giant wall with one touches, raw cards. After about a month and a half, I reached out to the owner and I asked him how things were going. And he said that they had done it was either 3 to 4 times the amount of raw card sales in that first period than they had ever done at the other store. Nice. And I really think it's because it's up on the wall. It's, if you present things well, and they're not, they're nothing crazy, maybe $5 to $50 cards. maybe 100 at the most. But, you know, if you're a store owner and you put something in a box, you're saying discount. You're saying, how much of a discount am I going to get? Because if I have to search for it, I want a discount.
Yeah, but I think if you put it on the wall in a display like yours, it actually makes it look and feel more premium. So you may get more sales that way. Maybe you can charge more without gouging. We never want to encourage gouging.
And that's the point. But with that said, you can also hand select, like they put, you know, when the Eagles were making their run, I guarantee that whole display was all Eagles, and they were just getting plucked off. And that's the other thing with retail, right? Everything is about how can you turn a piece of square footage into revenue generating. Well, there's no better way than taking a wall that's, you know, a 4 by 4 foot area in a wall. You're never going to get the return as if you put 150 cards in it and just, you know, say you turn that thing over 3 times in a couple months. What are you going to put up there? A jersey that might sell once in 6, you know?
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I want to go back when we were talking about relationships and, you know, you being present on social media. We've got here, we have Stiff Arm Wax says, show your slabs, never forget. And here we have Eric, who's Sanderson Door, who says there's only one slab display company to use, and it is Show Your Slabs. I mean, these are guys that you have met through your efforts of being present in the hobby, being on Clubhouse, being at card shows. I mean, it's a testament that if you are going to start a company in the hobby, if you're a collector or a hobbyist starting a company in the hobby, you have a good, unique idea. I think you're going to be a lot more successful if you have friendships out there. Like, look at your buddy Tim at Slabstrong. He's very active on social media. He got his own card made by Topps because he's put himself out there. That has to be good for his brand, right? Like, what have you heard from him as far as being on one of those influencer type cards? Has it helped his company?
100%. And Tim's the best because he doesn't care what, like, that if you can't take anything from Tim, that he, you know, even if people don't like it. And it was funny, and this isn't, you know, this is a story that's out there. We both have relationships with the people at Fanatics and Topps now, and they're fantastic guys. And it's interesting, our relationship with them, because we're not looking, you know, we're not over, you know, can we get product? Can we get this? We're kind of trying to present them ideas, you know, new stuff. This is the way, you know, hobby stuff, maybe something that they're not thinking of. And I was talking with one of the higher ups at Fanatics. We're getting something to eat in Vegas, and he was telling us about this card set that's coming out with the influencers. And he kind of went down the names of people. And I said to him, I was like, you've got to have I said the big hat, because I just thought the big hat. Like, I didn't actually really think Tim, because I know Tim is a big hat. And he had typed an email. And the reason I did that wasn't necessarily because I needed, God knows I don't need any, you know, to hear Tim talk about himself anymore. But I wanted, because Tim is a perfect example of, like, all the hobby negativity that people can throw upon the Jeff Wilsons and the guys and the Aaron, and it's undo or do whatever. I don't care. You can't hate Tim. You can't, like, just me. We both talk to each other about it all the time. He's making a slab, you know, bumper, and I'm making wall displays. We're out here having fun. Like, find something to hate on us. Like, you may not like the way I talk, fine, but that's, you know. So my thought was, when I told him about the big hat guy, it was like, okay, they're probably going to get destroyed for this, you know, because we saw how everything went with the V cards and all that stuff, where everybody just said, Fanatics is just taking this thing down the toilet. So my thought was, if you could just put that one person in there that flips the whole script, where it's like, oh, you might not like him, oh, but he's cool, then you gotta like the product. You can't, like, you know. And that's honestly, I'm so happy for him. And it's getting a little old, but now he's rejuvenated it with a whole new little spout that he's on with this guy on Instagram. So it's fun again.
Well, I think I saw something about that. So
he memed the guy to death. That's all you need to know.
What was the guy's name? Do you know?
It's like Hobby Shark or something. But the
Okay,
greatest thing was
that's what I was thinking, Corey, because right here, Hobby Champ says Hobby Shark hates Tim, and I'm thinking to myself,
no, Hobby Shark hates Jeff Wilson, and it's one of these guys that looks to hype the negativity of it. And again, there are things, if you took a card pick from Jeff and he told you to buy something and you bought 1,000 of them and you lost a bunch of money, then you may have a gripe. I don't think half of these people do. I just think they don't like the way he's kind of out there, and maybe he wasn't in the hobby before, and fine. But he literally went after Tim because I think he said, I can't imagine Jeff Wilson owning my company and making me wear a big hat to get attention. And like Tim, when I think of Tim and I go, oh man, how's this going to go? I totally forgot that he's got this ability to make these Pinata Farm videos that normally, I swear to you, when we first started hanging out and he started with these, I muted his account. Like I was like, it's enough. It's too many. But he brought them back, and in the most playful way, kind of just taking shots through little meme videos, to the point where I truly think if you could, he memed the guy to death, and the guy reported him and got him banned on Instagram.
Well, I've never heard of Hobby Shark, but as we're talking, I just looked up on Instagram. And I don't follow the person, and I see his name, 13,500 followers. So obviously a pretty big account as far as
if you dig into the followers, you may find not. But whatever. I don't even want to deal with it, because look, if he sees this and comes at me, I'm putting Tim on you. So good luck. I'm farming that out. I got no business in that argument. The negativity to me is just annoying, and the way Tim handles it is probably the best I ever see it, where he just literally makes memes of them. Of the first one was Baby Shark.
He's turning
his face singing Baby Shark.
Turning it into sport. Collector's Dream says good products like yours will be copied, unfortunately.
Yep,
and
I'm copying myself.
1956 Tops guy says, do you make a version for coin or comic collectors?
Yes. I don't want to go off screen, but I could show you one right now. It's on the other side of the office. But we make it, on the website. We have them for CGC, and the coin ones aren't on the website yet, but I had one on display at in Toronto, because I found out that PSA now grades POGs, and it's the same as the coin case.
Okay, so you have them available. Showyourslabs.com for 56 Tops guy, or anyone else who wants to look at coin or comic Show Your Slabs displays. You can find them. You can find them on the website, or of course, you can just reach out to Corey at Show Your Slabs on all of your social media platforms. Mike at Eastridge says, I love running into Corey, Tim from Slabstrong, and Dan from Stand Up Displays at shows. They're also positive and fun to talk to and hang around with. And Mark Santucci, so how was Leafland? Yeah, Mark, the expo was awesome. I did a recap last night. You can go back and hear all about it on that episode. The Toronto Expo was awesome. But for you, Corey, let's talk about your experience at the Toronto Expo. And you mentioned to me a funny story about a fire emoji thing. Why don't you tell us how the Toronto Expo is for you, and tell the story if you don't mind, because I think it's kind of neat.
The Expo to me is probably in my top 3 of shows, if not top 1 of just enjoyment as a vendor, and not overly feeling like the National is the biggest and obviously the brightest lights and all that. But with me, that National brings so much stress and just focus, and same with some of the other shows. Dallas is fun, but repetitive sometimes. The Expo I've been to I was at the first virtual, and I didn't know how that was going to go. And then I went to the first one, and I was just shocked. I mean, it is always well attended. Steve has done an unbelievable job in understanding how to run a show. Because yes, it's important to have the big names there. It's important to have the vendors and all that, but it's more important to get people in the door. And he is so good at that. And he doesn't, and I see him at every other show. So he's obviously out there and he's picking people's brains and he's wondering. He's always been so great to me.
And just so everybody knows, Corey's talking about Steve Menzie, who is the owner of the Toronto Sport Card Expo and the Edmonton Sport Card Expo, which is coming up next weekend.
Yeah. So and he gets it, right. And I saw, it's funny, you see Steve, he starts now he's wearing like the Jordan 1 lows, and he's got all the style, and I'm like always giving him shit because I just think it's funny how it's kind of the trajectory of, but he's such an awesome guy. So, and I don't know whether it's just because it's a lot of hockey, but there's really a lot of everything. I mean, I've never seen more like oddball stuff that I love. Like there's a guy that has that whole wall that has everything of wax you could ever imagine. I mean, even porn cards for black, just to show the extensive range of like every piece of wax from the early 80s on up. And nothing's crazy price, but I never am shocked. And I'm always astounded of how I could spend being on the other side of the booth. But anyway, so we started with the slab chains at the last show, and it was me and Tim, and they sold out like in probably the second or third day. So this last show, I thought I brought up enough. And again, just, collectors loving them. The slab chain to me was the kind of easiest no-brainer thing that I thought would maybe catch on a little bit, but I never saw it going where it is, because I think people love to wear it. It almost says what you have, right? And especially if you have one card you want to sell, put it in a chain. I think I had 2 people from this last expo come back and buy new chains because they sold the whole thing. And this is to that
card, and
story.
the buyer wanted the chain to go along with it.
Yeah, it was just easier to tack on it, So I'm set up with David. With David Marino's got some of his cards out, and it's the last day. And I had looked in one of my boxes, and I totally forgot I had brought this fire emoji chain, which is, again, the holder looks like a giant fire emoji. I make them for more TCG shows, and this kid comes up, and he's probably like 12, and he's looking in David's case, and he's got this one oddball Charizard card that maybe it was worth like $20, right? PSA 10 Charizard. And the kid is going back and forth with David, kind of hemming and hawing over it. And I go to the kid and I go, "Hey, if you buy that card, I'll give you this fire emoji chain." And he goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, deal." And as I say deal, there's a guy standing next to him who's probably in his mid-50s who goes, "Oh, my daughter would love that." He looks at the kid and he goes, "I'll give you $50 for it right now." And the kid's like, "What?" And he's like, you make $30, you don't even move." And the kid's like, "Well, I kind of wanted to like wear," like I could see the kid, his wheels turning, but I also could see like the father, like it was weird because I wanted to tell the father to beat it, but then he's like it for his daughter. So I'm like, I wish I had another one. I would have just, but I was really hoping that the kid would kind of hold on to it and like hold strong. And in fact, he did. So I saw him about a half hour later, caddy corner to a table, and I saw him wearing it, and I saw him like kind of holding it up to somebody. And then an hour later, some other random guy, like a 30-year-old guy, comes walking with the chain in his hand, and he's like, "Hey man, can you do you have one of those suction tools things? Now I want to change this out for my Charizard, whatever." And I'm like, "Where did you get that?" And he goes, "Oh, I bought it off of some kid for $100. And I'm like, honestly, I was happy. I was happy. To me, it's like you could think of it a couple ways. He held off to 50 at 100, sell it. And the crazy thing was that guy probably gave the Charizard that he bought to some kid because he could carry. He wanted to put, the 1999 promo, whatever he's like, people are going to go nuts over this. And I'm thinking, all right, yeah. But it was just funny to me that I saw the full cycle of the hobby, right? With a slab chain, because it's limited supply as their cards.
Yeah. Well, now you got to make some more of those things because they're going to be hot sellers at the show. So you do the show in Canada, the Toronto Expo. You do all the shows in the US, it seems like. Well, not to pit the countries against each other or anything, but Canada shows that you've been doing versus US shows? Are there anything else that comes to mind outside of the fact that in Canada you're going to have more hockey at the shows than you will in the US? What, like, and again, I'm not looking to pit them against each other,
No.
but for people really more, I'm getting at it from, for the people in the US that are watching or listening that have maybe thought about coming up to the Expo that haven't, would you recommend it? Is it, what will they find there that they're not finding down in the US outside of hockey cards? Anything about that you can kind of share?
I would recommend it 1,000%. I would be cautious to recommend it to anybody who I thought was strictly in it for flipping, for making money. And, if that's their primary focus. I'm not saying you can't, but if you're not into hockey, you can if you're in hockey, because hockey moves crazy. So maybe stock up on that. I can say that, like, if you're a collector, it's a must. Like, it's a must attend to me. Like, to just see, again, like I saw you guys were talking about it last night on the recap show. The amount of kids that, by the way, aren't in school, which I don't know what the hell's going on there. But in the same respect, I thought, well, they're probably making their parents' paycheck in that 4-hour window. But yes, it's 100%. I recommend it. It's not even pitting it versus the shows in the US, because truthfully, the shows in the US are fantastic in their own right. Everyone has their own little kind of way. But really, like, this to me, and let's also get this, on the record. This isn't some, like, they saw the hobby boom and started a show. Like, this has lineage. This is a well thought out, well planned, and not that the others aren't, but like, when you start a show and your main focus is to get me there and Tim there and PWCC and eBay as your title sponsor, and you're not spending a cent on Facebook advertising locally, or local radio commercials or whatever it is, and it's tough for vendors to travel and not know that the ground attendance is going to be there. But it is there. It's never disappointed, and it's grown.
It's a big show. I mean, it's been going on for at least 30 years, I think, at this point. And every show they're breaking attendance records. This last show, we've confirmed most attendance ever. I mean, if you were there on Saturday, Corey, it was just packed. And the aisles, as I've learned from listening to Ken Cairns from Sports Card Lessons, the aisles are a lot wider than those shows than most shows in the US. Despite the wide aisles, they were still super jam-packed on Saturday. I mean, not to the point where you're not moving, but to the point where you might have to stop for 10 seconds or 5 seconds and wait for a lane to open up,
A fun game to play if you are an American, you go up there and you're walking through those aisles, is just like loudly say, "Excuse me," and you'll hear about 10 sorries. And you're not, right? Nobody, like, it's not, nobody even bumped you. It's just, they're inherently nice people and they don't want to be in the way. But at that show, it's impossible not to. And let me add that, like, the food is great. It's not for an in-show thing. Like, they've got all the things that a show, they're not like planning it all as it goes. It's got lineage. To me, it's, as well run as the national. I don't even know, on scale. It's just now, again, I see, what's his name running around with his little thing. You guys were talking about it last night, who runs a show from Mikey's.
Mikey.
Yeah. Mikey from, I always want to call him Joey, because his name of his stupid Instagram handle is Joey's House of Cards. Yeah. That's another thing. People's Instagram handles is like, it's whatever you pick, that's going to be called. So, Mikey, you should have picked Mikey's Little House of Cards, and people won't call you Joey. But I laugh because every time I saw him, he's with his little thing. That's where we're coming in. I'm like thinking he's like, talking to some trucker, and he's, either worried about somebody stealing something or helping somebody move something in, but it is a well-run show.
They run a real tight ship there. Eric says Expo is the best show on the planet, and that's coming. Eric is American. Professor says I did show a non-hockey music card that I bought at the Expo. I bought 2 music cards at the Expo. I bought the Snoop Dogg and the Nirvana 95 Panini stickers card. So very happy with those. Mark Santucci doesn't have the right friends. Mark, you got to find. Yeah, it's great to have a partner to come with if you're coming up doing a road trip. So hopefully you can find someone to come to the Expo with you next time. Mark, would be great to see you there. Denny wants to know about poutine. Poutine's more of a Quebec dish, not a Canadian dish. Quebec being one of the provinces in Canada. No poutine that I'm aware of in Ontario, although there are some.
They have it at Wendy's.
Well, yeah, all Wendy's have it, but I mean, it's poutine.
Well, not in America, they don't.
Unless you're in Quebec, which is really where it's originated. It's not going to be.
And let me add that it's right by the airport. Like you could throw a ball at the airport. So
the conference center is right at the airport. Yeah, and so are the hotel.
Right, logistically, there's nothing easier.
I rented a car, Corey. I rented a car. I had it. I got there Wednesday night and I didn't leave till Monday night. So about what is it? 5 full days. Rented a car. I'm zipping from the airport, hotel, show, hotel, restaurant, hotel, show, back and forth. I went to fill it up with gas at the end of my term. $12.60 is all I had to put in to fill up the tank with gas. And that was being at the 5 days at the card show. So that tells you how close it is to all the conveniences, for sure. What's going on? John Wee of Center Stage. Good to see you, John. Okay, Corey, let's talk. We've been talking a bit about Instagram. I wanted to talk, when we were chatting the other day, we talked a little bit about like fiction, Instagram fiction versus reality, what's happening actually day to day in the hobby versus the narratives on Instagram and YouTube and all that. And, you have a unique perspective because you're talking to LCSs all the time. You're talking to collectors all the time. You're talking to companies dealing with promotional items all the time. So what are some of your perspectives on, what we're seeing on social media? And we also had mentioned, what you have some thoughts on the watchdog type of content. So why don't you just speak to, what are your thoughts? What's going on in your mind on all this stuff?
Yeah, to me, it's funny because it's not, again, and it's more probably a broader issue of just turn on the news and everything's negative. I get it. Look, prices are down. I did want to I thought I had pulled up some research of just card prices to show like, okay, a Michael Jordan in 2018 was how much? And now it's how, so I get it. Prices are coming back down to earth. People are realizing maybe they made bad investments, but that is all you ever see. And I don't know if it's an algorithm or what. Obviously, it probably is because people comment on it more. But, for somebody who goes to shows, who works directly with LCSs, who, talks to these owners, I have 3 stores in particular that I could just think off the top of my head that one, I just saw an Instagram post today that doesn't have as many likes as it should that said this last month tied their second best month ever being in business, over 2 years. And January was their best month ever, and I think 2 months ago was like matched that. So what I mean is so that store, they're opening another store, right? Because they can't keep the stuff in the shelves. They're moving to a bigger store. Another store in AA Mint, which is actually one of the first stores I worked with, that was actually featured with 2 Chainz, nonetheless, on a big documentary. They're moving into they're tripling their size moving in. Yep, AA Mint. That's it. And it's because of demand.
Corey, collector's dream here is talk that beautiful wall card display. That's your work.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And that's something that was Mark and his son came to me at a show in Miami. And again, if I didn't go to the shows, I would have never met him. He was, doing a lot of business on eBay and wanted to open a store with him and his son. They signed this lease and they had they had, maybe 900 square feet or 1,000 square feet. And if they would have put the standard showcases in, you wouldn't have been able to walk by, like it was so narrow. So we were able to provide a big solution, which was literally 1,200 slabs on the wall that they have, top and bottom. But again, so they're one of them. And then the other one I just spoke about, Wheelhouse, they're opening a completely new second store and it's, I see their Instagrams and they do post about it. It just doesn't get picked up, like full of kids. Now, maybe this is just because it's that collector mid, and I'm not saying the guys that are in it for high end aren't collectors too, that are, that they see these price drops down. But like, as far as wax being ripped, stores being full, singles being sold, it's just nuts. And like, I just wish somehow that story would be told better or more, or just in relevance to, all these, like a card porn post the other day, the Jordan at this price, at this time now, and when it was like 2 years ago. And I commented on there and I said, why didn't you post a price 4 years ago? Like, if we're doing price analysis, full transparency is the way to go, because the price of the Jordan, I think in 2018, I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong by that much, was 30 to 50,000, right? Yeah, 30,000. It's never dropped. I mean, since the big boom, it's what now, 140, maybe at the very lowest.
I'm hearing of them selling 150 to 180. I know a private sale just took place at 180. So
yeah, like, again, like, so if we're going to let the top of the market dictate, like, and maybe we don't need pushback, because really Instagram is just a catalyst of, people trying to show off what they want to do, or because I don't even think some of these guys, they're so busy they can't be on Instagram, so they don't care. They're running stores, they're doing birthday parties, which is so freaking cool. Like, you can go, like, they have packages set up where you can go in and it's a trade thing, and you set up, every kid gets a prison pack and they all do a rip, and they, figure out, like, to me, those kind of things are honestly the best. And screw all the sentiment of like the hobby and everything, like just making money. Like, these guys aren't, and a lot of them didn't start with allocation. They don't have the biggest allocation. They work with what they get, but they get the customers in. And every single one of them has said they've never seen more traction in the shops. Now you look on Instagram, everything's, and really the problem, like you were saying with the watchdog stuff, is the story is never told true. Like, to me, it's nuts that we call some of these people journalists because they don't give up their sources, but yet they're not held to tell a full story. And you probably know what I'm talking about, and I'm not even going to go down the road of it, but like, some of the stories reported, or like, I think there was one the other day, and again, don't get me wrong, this was the Bleacher Breaks guys. I think Cage said something about it. Was like, yes, they lost a card and it came back up later on, but apparently the person who got the card stolen or misplaced was given like $2,000 in hobby, like way over value of whatever the card was, and it came, so. We don't hear that part of the story. But I do agree that the people that are just straight, cheating people should be drummed out and kind of just left to their own devices and kind of put on blast. But let's try to collect a little more fact before we just go straight to the, bury them.
Well, here, let's look at this comment from Matt from the Essential Credentials podcast. Says, we are still in this cancel culture / negative culture that people seem to be drawn to. There is so much positivity in this hobby that gets overlooked, especially how amazing this community is. And I think it's a good point, especially the last part, the community, because, and I know Matt, and just being at the Expo this past weekend, I made new friends at the Expo. I had dinner on Saturday night where I really only had dined previously with 2 people at the table. Only. That's a big number, actually, when there's only 6 of you sitting there. So 3 people I sat down and had dinner with for the first time ever. I mean, that's a positive. That's positivity in our hobby. At least for me, that's positivity. So I get to talk to more people. I get to make new friends. I get to learn how they approach the hobby. Why are they in the hobby? What do they love about collecting? I like to hear those stories and learn more. And, that's the positive story, that's hobby positivity. That is a great kind of positivity. And I'm happy I can talk about it right here, right now, because otherwise I'm probably not going to go do a short video on YouTube to talk about the way we see short videos on a lot of the complaints or the negative stuff. And when I say negative stuff, I'm not talking about fraud, have at her. I mean, that's bad. We don't want it in our hobby, and we want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We had hobby negativity that was masked by positivity come out of the Expo, where that one guy who stole the cards and brought them to sell at the Expo got caught, and a bunch of people rallied to help catch the guy, and they did. And then the authorities came and took him away, and whatever happened. But, that's another story where the hobby rallied together. It started off as something negative. It turned into something quite positive. So, do you have any comment on the general narratives that are going on in hobby content, and anything further to what you've already said? I should say.
So again, and I'm not against reporting that sales are down or reporting that prices are down or trying to help people navigate this world that people look at these things as asset class and invest and want real information. And the real information is maybe this isn't the time to buy, or maybe it is. And there are really people losing, a lot of money, and that should be talked about. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to bringing real news, but a lot of it just seems to be, pardon my language, with bullshit drama that nobody cares about. And the reality of it is they're doing it for clickbait. Again, prime example of that Hobby Shark thing. If Jeff Wilson owned Slabstrong, made Tim wear a hat and go to shows, who gives a shit? I mean, who cares? Why is that a bad thing? Why do you care? Why do you need to make a post about it? You obviously built up 13.2 thousand followers, and you don't sit behind you're just a collector and you want what's right for the hobby, because that's just not true.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, someone like Tim, and again, I don't know Slab Shark at all. Just found out about him really today.
I knew him. I have had interactions with him.
But I'm just saying
about a website.
I do know Tim, and at the end of the day, I'd rather be the person, making moves. I'd rather be the person building a business, fulfilling a dream, and have somebody kind of come at me versus be the somebody who's just looking to come after somebody for whatever reason, because you've got too much time on your hands. One is out there doing, and the other is out there reacting. And I'd rather be the doer than the reactor. And I think that just right there, Tim has the upper hand and could probably just forget about it and move on. Just let them do their thing, because they're no matter what you do, there's going to be somebody out there who has too much time on their hands, probably is a little bit scared to take a risk. Meanwhile, Tim's out there taking a risk, starting a company, and found an investment partner in Jeff Wilson who believed in his product. Well, that's a pretty nice thing for somebody to believe in your product and want to invest in it and take a liking to you and help you move forward with your company. So if anything, Tim should be holding his head, and I'm sure I know he is, but I mean, from my perspective, Tim should just be holding his head high. And he doesn't need that hat to hold it high. He holds his head high. The hat's
just a normal size hat now.
I've known Tim for a while now, and we've hung out, and what a stand-up guy. So anyone who's going after Tim really needs to check themselves, I would say. Stiff Arm Wax agrees. right there with that. So, and I know Stiff also does know Tim. So yeah, I mean, some of the content out there, it is good because people do need to know what is happening out there. But prices falling, is that really that negative for the hobby? I mean, it's negative for people who came in 2021, but if you have been around for a while, prices falling, well, hey, we talked about earlier, I sold my Bobby Orr rookie card last weekend. I bought the card in 2008 or 7. Okay. If I would have sold it in Q1 of 2021, I might have got double what I got for it a week ago, but I still got 7 times my cost on it, 700% gain on that card. And this is today after prices have come down almost 50%. So, I mean, from the all-time high, I guess I got just over 50% of the all-time high on that card. And I'm still feeling pretty good about it. So prices coming down, you have, like you said, Corey, you need to kind of zoom out. You need to look at the whole landscape and say the hobby didn't start in 2021 when a couple Michael Jordans sold on Golden for $720,000. That wasn't the start of the hobby. And so if you've been around a bit longer, like myself and many others, we're still doing pretty well with the values of our cards if we were to go to sell them. So,
and that's why I appreciate you, kind of how you are with it, because you're somebody who's been in it for so long, right? And I kind of get a pass because I don't think I really irk anybody in it. Like, but I see some of these people who, like, these companies come in and start up and, like, they're just like, immediately, you weren't in the hobby in this time. You have to prove yourself to something. Like, if we want this thing to grow, again, other than somebody committing fraud or whatever, like, if you want it to grow, and for people to be like, out and spoken about it on Instagram of all places, to say, like, to kind of how they gatekeep, for lack of a better term. I hate that term, but there are people that do it, in many different ways. If you gatekeep and you go on Instagram, you're just that's literally the opposite of what it is, because you're just doing it because you want more people to see it, right? But you don't want more people to come in. So, like, again, and the one thing about, yes, it's easy for Tim to brush that stuff off and all that but what ends up happening is these, kind of gotcha accounts and negative accounts, they breed their own kind of, and then other ones start piling on to me, I can't even imagine having the time of day to comment something, and especially something negative, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to really stick it to, I'm going to tell him that Jeff Wilson told him, like, in what world do you have time for
Corey,
that?
Misery loves company.
Right, but you got to put a pin in it, because the company, like, great example, some other guy jumps on this Tim thing, comments on something about, thank God he's finally stopped talking about his card at least. Tim revs up the old Pinata Farms, dumps this guy in it with the, he's got the cards just floating around him and all this stuff. And he's like, imagine. And then the guy DMs Tim. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I just made one comment. And, like, so then now this guy has a pot, like, and Tim's like, I'm just playing with, like, now they have so I do think there is something inherently in, like, he turned that guy back. Like, okay, maybe all this negativity isn't, maybe they are just having fun. Maybe it's like, not take it too seriously. So I get the Tim's doing better, overlook it, but I also think there is something in trying to take a second and figure out a way to either meme the person to death, which is the greatest thing in the world to even say, or, reach out and be like, let's go live, let's talk. You got a problem?
I prefer the latter. And it doesn't have to be live publicly. Have a private discussion and see if you can find some common ground.
And if you can't, fair.
Well, we're all in this hobby. We all have something in common to start on. Maybe we can build from there and find some common ground. And maybe we're misunderstanding, misinterpreting, and those sorts of things. So it's possibly, not in all cases, of course. Hobby Champs here says, I don't enjoy the prices falling content. I'm fine that it exists, but it's a little finger pointy. Someone may have lost big, so why rub it in? It just seems clickbaity.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen thumbnails on YouTube that are like, I lost $10,000 or I lost this or I lost that, which I think that's great content because you're showing people, as Matt here says, you're informing collectors of what you might expect down the road. It's really about risk and being aware of the risk. It's almost like a risk. It's
Totally
like a risk
go with that.
disclosure for newcomers. Like you said earlier about, kind of the gatekeeping discussion, and a lot of veteran collectors are kind of having that get off my lawn mentality when it comes to some new collectors. And I think, again, I agree with you, Corey, that's the wrong way to go about it. It's the new collectors who are helping us grow, and we as experienced collectors should be trying to mentor them or providing them with some good information and some alternatives to how to approach the hobby and learn from the mistakes that we've all made along the way. And I saw this one really bothered me. I saw a story post on Instagram about a week ago from an account that I follow. And this post basically said, I'm gonna butcher it, but the idea was, I'm tired of all these new collectors talking about what cards are important from the 90s. Leave it to us who were here at the time to tell you what cards are important. I'm thinking to myself, what a closed-minded approach. Like why would you even post that? Just because you thought something was important in 1997 doesn't mean that Johnny over here in 2023 still thinks it's important. Things change. Priorities change. A card that wasn't important in 97 might be important in 2023 or backwards or something else. If I think a card's important because I love the card, that's up to me. Just because you were collecting in the late 90s, you can tell me that back in the 90s, this card wasn't chased as heavily, but that doesn't mean that it can't be important today. So I don't know. And maybe there's a whole discussion there, but that was a gatekeeper type of story post that made me think, why would you demean a new collector who likes a card that you didn't think was important?
Right. And this is a great example of like this card, right? And it's way overgraded. It's not that crazy, but like that Jordan to me is the epitome of Michael Jordan. I am going to jam this ball so far down your throat, and I'm going to spread my legs right in your face, and you're going to take it, you're going to like it, and you're going to just keep on about your day. Like, I actually have a literally full display of this, I think it's 20, it's like 19 of them that spell the number 23. They're nothing crazy. If I posted on Instagram, oh, what are those? I graded those. They're worth like $25. I don't care. Like, I get it. They're overprinted. I like that card. Like, to me, I do wish there was like a parallel or something to just kind of differentiate it, like, a number or something. But they didn't do it then. So fair enough. Like, this to me is more Jordan than the flying, like than the rookie card. I get that's a rookie card, but like, this is the epitome of Jordan to me. Now, if somebody else says the epitome to Jordan to them is a Space Jam card, awesome. Cool. I got one of those too, where he's palming Marvin the Martian.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm as you're talking, and my mind is kind of, going off in different directions based on this talk about what's important and what isn't. And I'm wondering to myself, going back in time, I remember some cards that I was chasing in 1991. Some of the first insert cards in Pinnacle Hockey were called these Pinnacle B cards, which now nobody shows them. You don't see them at the card shows. You rarely see them on Instagram. They're not important. They're not really important anymore, but they were very important back then. And this is different than your Jordan example, because you're talking about a fifth-year Jordan, which is important to you because it epitomizes Michael Jordan, which I think is completely valid, and you love the card. But as far as like at the time, what was the big chase card? What was everybody going for? And I can tell you that, you know, contrary to this post that I'm talking about that I saw on Instagram, these Pinnacle B cards have kind of lost their importance. That said, I did trade one away at the Expo, and the buyer of the card, or the guy I traded with, he said, I remember chasing these in 1991. This was the biggest, this was the first true insert in hockey, the insert set, with the first insert being the Stanley Cup hologram and Pro Set. But he was so happy to get the card. It was like $100. You know, it wasn't 15 grand like a lot of the important cards from back then. So it's lost its importance generally, but it was still very important to him. I understood its significance, but the hobby doesn't care anymore. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is the hobby is entitled, generally speaking, not to care anymore about that card, or to pick a different card that came out of that product or a similar product, and to say that that's now important. Nobody should be able to tell you what is important, what especially if it's like a rare card, because rare and important kind of runs together a lot of times. So
yeah, I'm 100% on that. Like, again, I envy these guys who have these crazy collections that are value, and they're, you know, some of these cards are, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff. But like, to me, some of them, I'm like, really? Like that card? But like, I would never say that. But
no.
But if I said that, they'd be like, yeah, well, it's $1 million. I'd be like, well, I don't care. Like that, like,
I don't care. It's ugly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing right there too. It might be ugly to you, but it's not ugly to them. Like, for example, there's I love my 90s Jordan cards, but I don't love all of them. And there's one card that is like a super grail. It's that molten metal fusion card out of 40. It's got the gold version out of 250 as well. I don't think they're all that nice, but my Jordan friends love this card. It is a super grail. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'd rather have this or that, because it's what you like yourself. So it's easy to get caught up in chasing the cards that everybody likes, but it's quite empowering when you realize, or you're not causing yourself to chase a card that you're only chasing because everybody else is chasing it. And as we were talking about a bit earlier with some of the like attack type of content out there, it's a lot of like groupthink and misery loves company and that sort of mentality. Yeah. And listen, our hobby is not the only subculture that contains those attitudes. It's in every hobby and culture. I have to think. I'm not a part of all these other hobbies, but you know, it's just the way life is. It's the way the world is now. So it's and for those of us who, you know, prefer to just focus on what we love and go about and do our thing in the hobby, whether it's collect or run a business or have a YouTube show, whatever it is, you know, we're entitled to do that and go on and maybe just not consume some of the stuff that we don't want to consume, because we love the hobby. Everyone can approach the hobby and the card collecting the way they want. We can also approach how we spend our time consuming content in the hobby and what we are consuming. So that said, it's important to be aware and to be informed on what's going on, so you can avoid some of the pitfalls of the hobby and pick your channels carefully.
100%. And those things are like, you know, I don't know who commented it. The price guiding stuff is fantastic, right? But there is not a YouTube video, a YouTube channel, a video of a price guide that will ever, or not will ever, but will affect me. So I don't need it jammed down my throat with a, you know, thing that just says, oh, like everyone negative falling. It's there for people who need it, which it should be, you know, the price up and downs and all that. But like me and Tim, it doesn't matter if all the cards go to zero. We don't have any cards that are like crazy grail. And if they were, we're not really like, it's too funny. This is kind of a story that goes back to and ties in the Expo. The last Expo we went to, me and Tim drove together. Or no, it was a different show, but we're driving across the border. I've never had a problem driving across the border. Border agents ask you what you're doing. I tell them what you got. Tim's never had it either. He usually goes with Eric. So we get to the border and the person's asking, So what do you got? Well, how many cards you got in those cases? What are they valued? Of course, Tim can't just be. He's got it like. He's like, well, they're no value. I'm not selling them. And they're like, well, okay, if there's no, I get it, but like, what's the value? And he's like, I don't know. They're my cards. I'm not selling them. He's like telling this to the border agent. He's like refusing to give a price because he's like, I'm not selling my cards. They pull us off, search the whole car. I'm like, dude, just say like they're fucking $10. Pardon my language, but say they're $10 each. Like this, whatever. Make up a number. And he's just, but that's us collectors in a nutshell. Like at the end of it all, like if somebody begging to tell us what their price is, we even if it's a border agent, we're not giving you a price because it's not for sale.
They're either priceless, like worth like hundreds of millions to us as individuals, or they're worth zero. And both of those can be true at the same time because they're not for sale. There's no price on them. I'm going to go through some comments here. One of them ties in right here from Matt. He says, if someone told me my Marc-Andre Fleury collection wasn't important, I'd laugh. Why would I care what someone else thinks about my collection? Money doesn't equal importance. I agree with that, but importance does often lead to being worth more money. It's just supply and demand kind of thing. He also said here, growth mindset works to any collector's advantage. It's essential, and I do agree with that. Having that growth mindset is just a healthy way, I would say, to be. Perk here says, I agree on the 1990 Fleer Jordan. That was the first full box of basketball cards I ever ripped, and I'm proud to own that card in a PSA 10. Hobby Champ says to Jeremy, I know you love that Stanley Cup hologram card out of 10,000. It still sells for $400 plus, raw, low grade, crazy. It does. That card is actually, I feel like it's gone up in value, or at least comps would tell us that as of recent times. Sylvan is gone. Great to have you. And Perk goes on to say that Michael Jordan 90 Fleer is worth over $200 in PSA 10. How many real working people can afford to spend $200 on one sports card? Gets lost in the conversation all of the time. And that's actually like, I like this comment because we throw around these dollar figures on cards as if it's nothing. And I think
money.
Even myself, I've gotten numb to some of this stuff. Like you walk around the expo and you look at the prices on cards and you're like, okay, so there's a vehicle, there's my daughter's wedding, there's a down payment on a house, and I've only looked at 2 rows in one showcase, and I'm already at like, $500K worth of cards. Like, it's crazy. And these cards don't really have any utility except for, personal enjoyment. They're not, we can't eat them, we can't wear them, we can't live in them. So, the value is based on nostalgia, sentiment, and rarity, scarcity, these things. But it's true. $200 for one sports card is a lot of money for probably 90% of people in North America, maybe more. I'm not sure, but.
Well, what's interesting to me is like, I've done the same thing, and I walk around and I go, how in this possible, like you said, a expensive car, this row is a mansion, to me, I kind of look at, and then I go to the next case and I see the same car. So meaning the same card, but same price as a car. And there is a part of me that thinks like, this is a lot of people just like not willing to budge. And this whole thing could if everyone, there's no way these cards are worth what they're stickered, obviously. Now there are sales for some of them, but like how many Lucas can you have in a case where everyone's 12,500 and this and that? And like, there's a lot of funny money in scenarios. And I just hope that it doesn't all like the rug doesn't get pulled out, because that's my biggest fear is other circumstances in the world. But I do now, I know we've gone along, and I just want to go into the Fanatics thing quickly.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I do truly think that Fanatics, while they say the number's 10x and all that kind of stuff, it's not. I've had discussions with some of them and just listening to Ruben talk and stuff. it's a slow grind, it's a slow build, right? And they're doing this for a long-term gain to get the guys who think that their achievement is that $200 card. Like, that's fine. It's fine to achieve a $200 card. It's fine. Like, I think the most expensive value card I have is maybe $2,000. Like, I don't search for cards because, again, if you buy a card for $10,000, you have to have some kind of thought that this is going to be a financial gain, or you're just crazy, or you just don't have money.
I agree 100%. I always use the terminology, if the money is significant to you, you have to consider what you're taking it away from, and that, you might want to consider it as an investment as well as a collectible. I think you can look at it both ways. As far as, talked about the rug kind of getting pulled out from under us, I think that, on some cards, it's going to be pulled out because there's just too many of them and too many parallels, and they're too expensive that it may not sustain. But this is where you have to be savvier. Maybe not talking to anyone in particular, but just, generally speaking, you need to be savvy about it and think to yourself, what kind, if the rug does get pulled out from under us, what cards are going to maintain the highest, percentage of value versus others. And that's where, some hobby experience and some just being savvy and understanding, how things work, like even general economics can come in very handy, because again, like I said before, the utility that is attached to our sports cards is limited to enjoyment. That's really all it is. Maybe bragging rights if you like to do that, which that's fine.
Maybe putting it on
but again, you can't
gaudy like that.
Yeah, putting them on your slab chain. But again, we can't eat them, we can't live in them, and we can't wear them. So I guess we can eat them, but you're not going to get much nutrition out of that. So
one interesting part, real quick.
Go ahead.
I just want to go. I know you hate to step it on. I just wanted to, before we wrap that last part up, what had me thinking when you just said the rug pulled because there's so many. The one thing that doesn't really get talked about that's an interesting kind of study because I see a lot of trading, right? A lot of value trade and this kind of stuff. So like maybe what does really help it is, say you have a $10,000 Luca, right? And who knows what the real value of that is. Some guy trades you 5 cards that are worth $8,000 and a couple $1,000, right? So then you have all these cards spread out. Well, that guy may have pulled 1 or 2, so he's not into it. Like, so that's where it kind of can trickle down. That's one thing that doesn't really exist in any other place is trade. Like, trade is such a big deal where you can get, if you have 15,000 on a card, you'll take, 7,000 in trade or 7,000 in trade and 7,000 or 8,000 in cash. But really that 7,000 in trade, that guy only had 4,000 into it. Right. So that's where the money kind of makes itself up in a way. Yeah. So, I mean, that's an interesting kind of study.
Well, that's a good point for sure. Okay. So Eastridge here, Mike says, I love it when people come into the store and get excited buying $1 to $5 cards. Yeah, I can definitely understand that, Mike. And good, obviously always good to see you. Essential Credential says money equals fun coupons. Hobby Champs, there's safety in sticking to sub $1,000 cards. Cards AH here says a good portion of value in our cards is a good portion of value in our cards in the market is speculators and resellers. If they all dropped out of the market, we would see the true value of our collection. So I just want to address this. I look at this in 2 ways. I'm sure I'm missing some ways. But one, when I think about speculators and resellers, I think oftentimes they are buying cards at whatever, 70% of comps, let's say. So if they're not out there buying them at 70, those card owners might get 90 or 100% of comps, or maybe 110 or 20, because obviously cards do go up in value. So that might not be the worst thing. Where I think it's most impactful, based on this comment where we're talking about speculators and resellers, is on ultra modern cards. And when I talked earlier about being savvy, trust me when I say, if you're only out there buying, in my opinion, if you're only out there buying ultra modern cards, you are not being savvy. There's just too much risk associated with it, in my opinion. So So, I mean, if the resellers and the speculators are going to leave the hobby and get out of the ultra modern, that might be the best thing to happen to the hobby right there. And again, I have nothing against resellers or speculators, but if they're going to get out, maybe we'll see less collateral damage done from people who are getting caught up in the hype and buying into the flavor of the month rookie in each sport every year. They don't always all make it. Some of them certainly do, though. Okay, thank you, Cards AH. Essential Credentials says, I agree that the East Ridge takes us back to the core of us loving collecting as kids. Mike says, I wish more people would just get excited to buy cards they like, no matter the value. And you know what? It's funny because I picked up some cheap cards at the Expo and I just loved them. Like I love them as much as I love an expensive card. So it still happens, but you know, if you're watching, if you're consuming content on Instagram, a lot of time it's about the bling versus just enjoying the cards themselves. And hey, if you're Corey, that's good because you sell a slab chain that you can actually wear.
We
card
do,
bling.
but more importantly, like that comment, you know, I wish people. I think there is. I think there are a lot of people that buy cards just because they're excited about them. I just don't think they're highlighted. Like our business, as far as you know, slab displays and stuff is not seeing any downtick on values. Why? Because people are forced to hold, or they need to, or they're kind of just sitting back like in a wait period, and they're like, oh, I kind of like these cards, or maybe they're finishing a set. And I'm not saying that his, you know, comment is wrong. He wishes he see more or more people would get excited. I would just caveat that with saying I think there are people getting more excited. We just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. There
stores are nuts.
I saw it. I saw it at the Expo, whether it was at my booth, whether it was guys at my booth coming to show me and the people at my booth the cards they got and the joy in their faces at what they acquired for their personal collections. Like I saw tons of that this last weekend at Expo, and I can't wait to see more of it next weekend at the Edmonton Expo. Hobby Champ says most, but not all, but most ultra modern has nowhere to go but down. And of course, there are going to be exceptions in every year and every product. Likely there are going to be some hidden gems, or maybe not, maybe some unhidden gems, but there's always going to be some good cards. But that's where you have to be savvy and don't just get on the train of who's the flavor of the month rookie. Literally, just because you have one good game doesn't mean and your cards go up that day. I mean, that's not savvy if you're the buyer on that day.
Yeah.
All right.
You should also be the seller on that day.
That's the more savvy play. It's hard to be that. It's hard to sell when you see everything going up. If it was so easy, I would have sold my whole collection in March of 2021 and bought it back over the past few months. That would have been genius, but I'm not smart enough to have done that. So, and I'm also pretty attached to my cards. So
yeah, let's be
tough,
honest.
You know,
had none of the right. It ain't the money; it's the cards.
All right, let's wrap this up, Corey. Thank you so much, dude. It's been a really fun conversation. I want to thank Leighton Sheldon for joining us earlier. I feel like we've covered a lot tonight, man. So again, thank you for what you do for the hobby, for your sharing your experience here tonight. And you're one of these, you're a hardworking guy. You're out there, you know, grinding away, running your business, growing it up. So show your slabs, everybody. Give Show Your Slabs some love. Make sure you're following Corey on Instagram. I'll put on the ticker right now, simply at Show Your Slabs, showyourslabs.com. Check it out. You can get one of these. If you have a nameplate, you can get one of those, just like right there. That's a full nameplate, 9 letters. It sits above my closet. Corey also outfitted me with one of these nice displays, so I don't want my cards to fall out of it, but there you go. Because and they do fit tag slabs.
I was going to say, they fall out. You must have not peeled the gel off.
I didn't peel. I didn't peel the gel off. I need to take these out to take them to Edmonton, at least the ones on the bottom. So, yeah.
Take the whole display. We need to upgrade on card show displays too. So that's coming.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Eric Stefano. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will be back tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern with Josh Madigan from the Hockey Cards Gong Show. I think his partner in crime over there, Troy Iverson, might be joining us as well if he's available. We're going to be covering the There's like 425 or so hockey cards going off on the PWCC Weekly. I picked out about 35 of them that I want to take a look at. So come hang out with us tomorrow night here on the channel. There's no after hours tonight, Mark. Thank you, Hobby Champs. Good to see you. Good follow on Twitter, everybody. Hobby Champs. Check it out. All right, man. Well, listen, I think that's all I got for tonight. So thanks again, Corey. Thank you, everybody else out there. Corey, hang tight. But for the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. If not, have a great week ahead. And hopefully the Oilers can hold on and take this game tonight and win against the Kings in 6. If you want them to. If you are Amanda, go Kings for you. All right, everybody. Yep. Corey,
buy what you love.
This episode is over.
Thanks.